This is Lauren Burke. This is Lauren Live. I'm going to talk about something that's building in the media, which is this question of whether or not Jeffrey Epstein was murdered. This was always a point of suspicion in terms of the timing and when he died, right when the case was turning. The heat was, of course, turning up, and then he's found apparently hanging in his cell, which just seemed really odd. And then there's no video. The video happens to be missing. It was always a strange situation. It was always quite odd. Here you have a star prisoner that everybody knows. And he's in the jail, and you're telling me he hangs himself and nobody sees it, nobody notices, and oh wow, there's no video. Now the Epstein files are revealing that the FBI was actually looking into this, and now Julie K. Brown, who is the star reporter around everything Epstein, who really is somebody who's irreplaceable in this story in terms of the information that she puts out. Now she's writing about it. And now there's a return to the question of whether or not Jeffrey Epstein was murdered. But something certainly fishy is going on here. Now we have a prison guard that was Googling him right before, and now money's been deposited allegedly, reportedly in her account. What is going on here? And everybody on the internet is, of course, talking about this because it's definitely been more than just on the level of a conspiracy theory level story. It's been something everybody had suspected might be the case given the timing.
What about Jeffrey Epstein? I think there were $600 million recovered in cash and assets in his estate. They do not know now where that money came from.
600 million?
Yes, we don't know where he made his money. He was not running a hedge fund. That's not true. The second thing we know for a fact is that he was killed in federal custody. He was murdered. That's true. He was murdered in the special housing unit of federal lockup in Manhattan. They moved someone out of his cell. They put two people, one of whom was not even a full-time prison guard, on duty. None of the cameras trained on the cell worked. They locked the front of the special housing unit that had 8 cells in it, but then they opened all the cells inside.
Now that's a lot. That's a lot there. You don't have a camera on his cell of all cells. Wow. I'll be back in 1 second. So back to the question of whether or not Jeffrey Epstein may have been murdered. There's a lot of speculation. And that speculation is starting to get louder and louder because, in fact, now in the Epstein files, we have indications the FBI was seriously looking into that question. And before that, I mean, for years, this has been a conversation that's gone on, and now it's starting to get to a little fever pitch here.
With the CBS News investigation raising some new questions about this video. You will recall Jeffrey Epstein was found dead in his jail cell in 2019, and it was ruled a suicide. Recently, the Justice Department released security video from the jail. One official called it raw footage, but we looked into it. Scott McFarland reports from Washington on what we found.
This was the nearly 11-hour video agents reviewed when they investigated the death of convicted child predator Jeffrey Epstein. Government officials say it's proof that no one entered his cell tier. Malfunctioning equipment meant only one camera recorded the general area, and that camera captured part of the common area, including the officer's station and a sliver of the staircase leading to Epstein's cell. Deputy FBI Director Dan Bongino.
There's video clear as day. He's the only person in there and the only person coming out. You can see it.
CBS News has reviewed the tape, and this is what it shows. The primary entrance is here. The pathway from the entrance to the stairs is completely out of view of the camera, leaving ample room for someone to enter unseen.
I'm not sure why Dan Bongino is so eager to make this an open and shut question, but the politics sure match up with regard to protecting Donald Trump. That might be one reason. But one would think, I mean, the standard lack of curiosity that you see is unbelievable on somebody who you would think would be a prisoner, would have been on camera 24/7.
This is the last time Epstein is believed to have been seen on camera, but we don't see him walking up the stairs to his cell. Bongino also said none of this video was doctored. It was the original, raw footage from the camera.
We're going to give the original so you don't think there were any shenanigans.
But a review by multiple video forensic experts found several indications this may not be raw footage.
Yeah. So, this is a massive question and a massive screw up by this entire, set of individuals who were in charge of this case and in charge of his custody. How you could not batten down the hatches on the cameras that were around, you know, it just it's unbelievable. One of the people who's out there who's actually been in federal lockup, I'll get to him, is Michael Franzese. He's a conservative. There's no reason for him to say any of what he has recently said about this question of whether or not Epstein was murdered. But this was 7 months ago that he had said this. And Michael Franzese, once again, is a conservative, and I would actually say a Trumper. But I think more important than that, he was in federal lockup. He was a major figure in the mafia, and one of the last surviving major figures in the old mafia before the RICO standards came up. And he's an extremely smart guy, and he had a very interesting take on this situation.
Michael Franzese, he was a capo for the Colombo crime family in the 1980s. He served time in the exact cell where Epstein was later held. Michael, welcome back to the program. Tell us about that cell, and what do you make of these revelations that there is a minute missing from the surveillance video, Michael?
Well, listen, I spent 7 months on that tier and in those cells. And the first thing I have to say, there's no way you are able to commit suicide. There's just no way. There's no way to hang yourself. There's nothing from the ceiling. There's nothing from the bed. You'd have to be a midget and work really hard to try to hang yourself. And I don't think you can accomplish it at that point. As far as the cameras being off, I haven't experienced that. I did 8 years in prison. And I haven't experienced cameras being broken in the perfect storm of correctional officers not walking those cells.
Exactly right. The idea that this person who is a major figure, a major criminal, a known criminal, there's been a lot of people who are in jail in these centers in our country, in these cities in the country where you have a lot of obviously famous people. The idea that he wasn't under watch. And again, just like Michael Franzese just said, the perfect storm of the cameras happening to be off. Are you kidding me?
Walk in and they look in on you all the time. As a matter of fact, sometimes it's embarrassing to go to the toilet because they're walking past you and looking in the cell constantly. So I've said this from day one. I do not believe it was suicide. I can't talk about what happened to him, but I don't believe it was a suicide because you just couldn't physically do it. It would be almost impossible to do it. So that's number one.
It must be interesting, Michael. When you look at the video, though, it must be interesting because you know the area. I mean, we all look at this and it just looks like a prison, but this must look very familiar to you.
Absolutely, very familiar. And the fact that a minute is missing. Look, everything around this guy. I just did a very deep dive into him, which I'll be releasing on my platform in the next several days. Look, there's no way that this person operated alone. Look.
Yeah, so he's going to get a little bit away from the point of whether or not Epstein was murdered. But the point here is that the idea that you have all these facts lining up in the direction of, just like Tucker Carlson says in this video, it's like the direction of all this perfect storm energy and coincidental. Oh my goodness, the cameras just happen to be off and all that.
Unit that had 8 cells in it, but then they opened all the cells inside. There were 14 other inmates there that night. What are their names? Where'd they go? Who were these people? Can't tell you that. Really? You can't tell me that? On the basis of what? Meanwhile, Bill Barr lied. There's no question that Bill Barr clearly suspected Epstein was murdered, but stopped the investigation. Whoever did it was able to do it in the most secure lockdown in the United States of America and then get away with it. So that tells you a lot about whoever that group of people was. They're no one to. The list of people who wanted to kill Epstein was so long, it could be anybody.
What about Jeffrey Epstein?
Yeah, I mean, I may not agree with too much on Tucker Carlson, but he's right about that. This guy is one of the most secure facilities in the country. Everybody knows who he is, right? There's cameras all over the place, but oh, the cameras just happen to be off, and then we're supposed to believe that he hung himself. Exactly, exactly how did that happen? Exactly how did that happen? How many feet off the floor was he to hang himself? I mean, it's just the whole thing is completely suspicious. And then the fact that nobody wants to look into it. And again, I don't know why Dan Bongino didn't want to look into it. I mean, he talked about it as if it was just some sort of a slam dunk question. I don't really need to look into this, which actually made me even more suspicious. It was like, wait a minute, why don't we want to look into this? You would think that looking into this would be top of mind for everybody involved. And in fact, somehow hasn't been.
For example, at 11:21 p.m., a cursor appears briefly, indicating the video may have actually been a recording of a computer screen. Experts told CBS News the video's metadata, which tracks how a file is created and changed, shows it's made from two clips edited together. Then, at 11:58 p.m., the video suddenly jumps to midnight, and the aspect ratio shifts. Here's U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi.
There was a minute that was off the counter. And what we learned from Bureau of Prisons was every night, they redo that video. It's old, from like 1999. So every night the video is reset, and every night should have the same minute missing. So we're looking for that video to release that as well, showing that a minute is missing every night.
And so there happens to be a minute missing. Yet another, and she may have a perfectly good explanation for that, by the way, but that's yet another suspicious marker about this situation.
But a government source familiar with the probe told CBS News the FBI and other agencies are in possession of a copy of the video that records with no interruption.
These inconsistencies, while not contradicting the conclusion Epstein died by suicide, do introduce questions that the government so far has declined to answer.
Yeah, you can say that again. So this entire thing, you would think, would be under a heck of a lot of scrutiny, because of course, if we're concluding that in fact he was murdered, or somehow suspecting that he might have been, then the question is, who did that? How did that happen? And of course, this has now become a very hot topic, because in the Epstein files, there are documents indicating the FBI was looking into exactly this question. Question is, why were they looking into this question? Well, why were they looking into this question? Because it's such the obvious thing that he would die and disappear right at the moment when everything was really hitting crescendo, to say the least, in the Epstein story back in 2019. The idea too, you're dealing with so many powerful and influential and wealthy people, and once again, that's another reason to think that his death wasn't necessarily by natural causes. There's a lot going on here. Obviously, people will continue to look into it. As I was saying before, Julie K. Brown, who is the #1 reporter on the Epstein files, has got a story right here. Prison guards discussed cover up of Epstein's death. Inmate tells FBI. Prison guards discuss cover up of Epstein's death. Why would they be discussing a cover up of Epstein's death? See, just the fact that this is even being a conversation is very strange. An inmate housed at the Metropolitan Correction Center in New York told the FBI he overheard guards talking about covering up Jeffrey Epstein's death on the morning he died. Really? And that's in an FBI file? I mean, it's just unbelievable. And this now is going to open up a further discussion on this, as it should. And the question becomes, of course, who could have been involved in the cover up, if there was one, and or the murder, if there was one, of Jeffrey Epstein. But it does go to the question and the issue of, this is a person who was involved in activity, and those people around him involved in certain activity that was so huge that people, I think, would do almost anything to cover it up. I mean, just this is the whole point of the Epstein situation, that people who are wealthy and influential and connected and powerful can get away with anything. And this has been the nagging question with regard to equal justice under the law, and the fact that this particular situation should have been investigated a long time ago, should have been figured out a long time ago. And of course, the victims of Jeffrey Epstein should have received justice a long time ago. All of those things should have happened. And those things didn't happen because people did not follow up on information that I think was pretty obvious, very, very suspicious to say the least. But his death follows the same pattern as everything he apparently was doing in his life. Nobody really wants to look into it. Everybody's very uncomfortable about it. On and on and on, and it was really a strange situation. And now we've got FBI documents indicating that there's even more to this than we thought. So people are looking all over the place, and there's millions of documents involved in the Epstein files that were released by the Department of Justice. But we're just finding out about this and just seeing this, amazing. Jeez. And so I do think that um I do think that this was brewing and has been brewing for a really long time. People have been talking about this for a really long time, and obviously it was very suspicious when he died. A lot of people have the phrase, and I tend to believe it, there are no coincidences. I mean, the fact that it happened when it happened, just as the case was heating up, and that he was somebody who was obviously a key witness in this entire thing, just as Ghislaine Maxwell was. I mean, this is amazing that the principal in this story died in a correctional facility that has all these guards and all these cameras, but the cameras don't happen to work as pointed to the cell that he happens to be in. I mean,
They have
unbelievable.
the videos. Alan Dershowitz recently said that he saw the client list, but because there's people that he can't, because he's an attorney, he can't, reveal what he saw. But he said he saw the client list. He's demanding that it be released. To think that there's no flight logs, that there's no client list, that the thousands of recordings that they had, because I found out for sure that he had cameras on every bedroom, recording everything. And all of a sudden, all of it is gone. I mean, none of this makes sense. And look, the only reason it's important, it's not that anybody's trying to say, come on, this guy was a creep. And there was young women involved in this, young girls that were trafficked and abused. I have 5 daughters and I have granddaughters, and I just don't like it. And anybody that's involved in this should be held accountable.
Exactly right. That's exactly right. And anybody who's involved in covering up further by maybe having Epstein killed, because part of the thing of him being dead is, of course, you can't you can't get any information out of him. It all has to be discovered very slowly down the road, because he's been gone now since, of course, 2019. And the question is, well, like, are you telling me that there's somebody out there? I think there's a possibility. I mean, there's somebody out there who was that desperate to keep this all secret that he was killed in the process. I'm surprised Ghislaine Maxwell is still here, to be honest. I just find this to be deeply freaking suspicious. And again, everybody on the internet is talking about this, as they should be.
This was possible, but here we are. The Epstein story just got even weirder, specifically the circumstances surrounding his death. Now, of course, there has been some fierce debate as to whether Epstein took his own life or somebody killed him. And this new piece of information that we got, this article, is guaranteed to throw gasoline on the fire that is that conversation. So this is from the Miami Herald, journalist Julie K. Brown, who is one of the most famous Epstein journalists out there. I mean, she really helped break the story on what Epstein was doing to girls all around the world. She writes, prison guards discussed a cover-up of Epstein's death, an inmate told the FBI. Now, I will say right off the bat that this testimony has not been corroborated. It's coming from this one inmate who was in the prison where Epstein was held. But when you combine what they said, which we're going to go through in just a moment, with other information that is already publicly available, it is pretty weird. So anyway.
Yeah, the whole thing is pretty weird. And yeah, the chat, from the chat, you're right. Epstein did die on Trump's watch, died in 2019. I mean, I find the timing of the entire thing to be incredibly advantageous for anybody who wanted this story to pass by and move on. I mean, the timing of when he died was very advantageous for anybody who wanted this story to go away.
I recently interviewed Paul Hutchinson, who was, a major figure in the Sound of Freedom. He was one of the ones that went to rescue, I think, 51 or 52 of these young girls and young boys that were being exploited and trafficked. I mean, this has got to stop. And if these people are not held accountable, it's just going to continue. And unfortunately, it's
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we know about that part, but I don't want to get away from the question of whether or not he was murdered. So let's go back. Let's go to the New York Post. I believe this was yesterday when they reported that the prison guard Googled his name. So, of course, this is Julie K. Brown's X account. Um, Quick Zelle cash payments. Okay. Julie K. Brown, uh, of course, put up a bunch of stuff yesterday or 16 hours. Yeah, yesterday. DOJ docs, FBI interview, alleged prison guards talked about cover up in Epstein's death. Inmate tells FBI he heard guards saying Epstein was killed. Inmate tells FBI, let's say that again. Inmate tells FBI he heard guards saying Epstein was killed. Are you kidding? Now, Julie K. Brown, by the way, has a Substack with all of this stuff on it, all these things that she's found. And then she adds a few hours later, adding, there are also a lot of monthly quick Zelle cash payments to this woman's bank account during this time span. Prison guard Googled Jeffrey Epstein minutes before his body was found and deposited thousands days before pedophile suicide. DOJ. Okay, so let's click into this story. This is the New York Post. This is the New York Post. So, and the New York Post, of course, has been on this because, of course, this all happened in New York. So they probably have a little bit more intel, obviously being closer to the story geographically. But let's go to, sorry, I messed up here. Going to the page, just read a few paragraphs. Epstein prison guard Googled him minutes before body found, made mysterious deposit before file suicides. DOJ. This is what, according to the documents in the DOJ, which once again, Julie K. Brown is highlighting on her social media account and on her Substack. One of Jeffrey Epstein's prison guards Googled the sex predator minutes before he was found dead and also made a mysterious $5,000 cash deposit 10 days before the predator's jail cell suicide. New Department of Justice documents reveal Tova Noel, one of the two Metropolitan Correctional Center workers accused of falsifying records to say they checked on Epstein throughout the night before his August 10, 2019 suicide. I'm sorry, Toa Noel was one of the two Metropolitan Correction Center workers accused of falsifying records to say they checked on Epstein throughout the night. That's interesting. The night, of course, of August 10, 2019. The guards were fired, but criminal charges against both were later dropped. This is extremely suspicious. Okay, it is not just suspicious. This is extremely suspicious information. And the idea that the idea that all happened, and this is not revealed in these I'm sorry, I can't get the New York Post, usual New York Post. I can't get their stupid ads out of them to read this. It's very annoying. But okay, the next paragraph. No Googled latest on Epstein in jail at 5:42 a.m. and then again at 5:52 a.m. Less than 40 minutes before her colleagues, correctional officer Michael Thomas found the disgraced financier dead in his cell by hanging at 6:30 a.m. according to the FBI record of Noel's internet search history that night. Earlier that shift, Noel, 37, shopped for furniture online and snoozed on the job instead of making the mandated checks on Epstein every 30 minutes, while Thompson pursued motorcycles, prosecutors said. So these people weren't even watching Epstein. They weren't even watching him. They weren't even checking in regularly on him. So then you have that. And then, of course, you have the fact that the cameras were mysteriously freaking off. Wow. Isn't that something? The cameras just happened to be off when all of this was happening. I mean, this is just unbelievable. So anyway, between the New York Post and Julie K. Brown's Substack, you can see obviously something is incredibly suspicious. I'll leave the link to the Julie K. Brown Substack in the chat. I mean, she has been unbelievable. I think her thing is only $5 a month or something like that. She doesn't leave too many of them open for free to read, which is of course her prerogative. But the point here is that this is crazy. Julie K. Brown's Substack site is called The Epstein Files by Julie K. Brown. And if you hit the no thanks, as I'm sure most of you know about Substack, you of course get a page here, and she has put up the notes here where there was a discussion with these prison guards. DOJ docs FBI interview raised new questions about Epstein's quote suicide. She's got most of her content on lock, but once again, I think she's only like a few dollars a month. It's not like that expensive, and she is somebody who's always at the top of her game on this topic. But this is the link in the chat, the link to Julie K. Brown's Miami Herald. But I do think that because she's consolidated all her Epstein work on the Substack, it makes it a lot easier to follow it up from there. And reading the chat, I had 3 minutes to get him in and out of the cell, and the Trump second security footage was erased. I do think that Maxwell, the fact that she's still here and of course has testified to a lot of terrible stuff, is amazing. Is actually amazing. I'm surprised she didn't come up missing as well, because it's just or dead, because it's just unbelievable. You can see it's somebody with a great degree of somebody's putting a lot of energy to cover up the Epstein information, not just Trump administration, but there's just something is going on here. It's just too many stars are coming into alignment of suspicion on this case, and this has always been a strange situation, and it's getting stranger as these Epstein files are coming out. I'm going to leave it there. I want to thank everybody for joining. Please hit the like button. Appreciate that. I know it's Sunday and the clock's up, so it's noon Eastern, 12:21 p.m. Eastern. I'm in Virginia, but boy, I really could feel the clocks move up, because I usually get up pretty early, and I got up and I felt like I was late, and I totally had forgotten the clocks had moved up. Anyway, so this Epstein thing is going to get hotter. There's no doubt about it. Even though, of course, we have in the news a war, I'd say a lot of people are going to be paying attention to this. And I do think that this is going to eventually get to a point where there's got to be some sort of investigation. We can all wait 3 years until Trump is out of office, but these people are starting to say things that are certainly indicating that there's a huge problem in this case, to say the least. The question of whether or not Jeffrey Epstein was murdered, of course, lead to the other very obvious question: who did it if he was murdered? But it is interesting that the amount of money, the $5,000, I mean, that's nothing. It's incredible that you give somebody that much to do anything, particularly this big. But the fact that she Googled, and now we're hearing about his suspicious money going in bank accounts and Zelle accounts and whatever, that's all very suspicious. And you can bet that there's going to be more to come. Thanks for hitting the like button. Thanks for subscribing. Really appreciate this. Appreciate seeing so many people up this morning listening to me ramble. At any rate, more on Epstein later. There will be more to come out. I'll be very fact-based about this analysis. Just because it's in an FBI file doesn't mean it's true, but there's a lot of smoke here. There's a ton of smoke here, and that smoke is rising. This is Lauren Burke, and this was Lauren Live. Thanks for joining.
Thank you. Are you watching now?
Yeah. No, I was watching on the left, but it's excellent. I love it. I love the traffic's blowing up. You were in Brooklyn last night. Where?
I was in Bushwick.
Okay, I have my grandmother's house in Crown Heights.
Oh, yeah.
So when I saw you, I was trying to look at what the pizza place was to see where
As soon as we got there, someone recognized the pizza place. They're like, we got to get out of here. Someone in.
Get out. It was great.
Blowing up our spot.
This show is freaking fantastic.
Thank you.
Love it. Love it, man. Love it.